Hey, everybody. Welcome to the I303 podcast, where we talk about ingenious insights and oddball opinions from the perspective of an IO. Today, I have Greer Prochicsh with me, and we're going to be talking about leadership, performance management, and disability and accessibility as it all relates into the workplace. So, with that said, Greer, I'm going to hand it off to you so that way you can tell us a little bit more about your origin story and how you got into IO.
Amazing. Well, David, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So I'm Greer. I use she, her pronouns. I want to describe my background for anybody who has low vision. So I'm currently wearing a blue sweatshirt. My hair is down. It is long and brown. I have white headphones on, glasses, and behind me are a couple of colorful pictures. So I'm really excited to be here. I'm an HR person by heart with just a little bit of hospitality sprinkled in there as well. But my IO journey, I got brought to it because I had always felt like I had had bad leadership. And in my opinion, it was never their fault, right? I think it's their environment set them up to fail. And so I wanted to figure out how I could come and support people to be successful. And we spend more time at work than we do doing anything else in our lives. And so we have to create spaces where people can bring their whole selves to work and be successful and know what's expected of them. And so for me, IO really just kind of seemed to be the answer to that of how do people communicate? How are they motivated? All of those things. And then teaching managers what to do with it. So that's brought me into the disability and the accessibility space as well. And IO has been one of the best decisions that I made. And if I had to go back to school for it again, I 1000% would.
There
Thousand
you
percent.
There you go. I dig it. And so leadership is definitely a hot topic in today's
Yes.
world, especially with the crunching of the economy, if you will, where budgets are getting tighter, organizations are starting to tighten their belt a little bit, and a lot of individuals are being, laid off or are victims to reduction in force. And so
Mhm.
I wanted to get your perspective on how that relates to leadership and what role leadership can play during that transition period. If you could share your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I might have a hot take, and I'm totally
Yeah.
okay with that. But it's leadership's fault.
Okay. Tell me more.
Sorry, why are you putting the blame and the ownership on people who don't have any autonomy, right? So these leaders are making all of these decisions and doing all these strategic plans and planning for their QBRs and
Yeah.
everything, and then they miss the mark. And then who suffers? It's the people who are at the lowest levels, who are the frontline employees, who are hourly, whatever that looks like. But leadership stays, and then they get compensated more, right?
Hmm.
They're almost incentivized not to change. And so, in my opinion, I think all of these problems start with leadership. I think there's a lack of accountability at the top. I think the systems that we have set up have done nothing but reinforce that. And, we're kind of in a day and age of like best practices, and all of our best practices suck and they're really antiquated and they're not tied to behavior and they're not, done in a lot of ways that IOs know that things should be done. And so I think we just haven't really held leadership accountable, right? Like, why would they do anything different if it's not going to affect their pay? Why would
No.
they do anything different if they're not going to be promoted? Like, they're being promoted with all of this stuff being known. And so, in my opinion, it's leadership's just getting away with it because they can.
Yeah. And from an IO perspective, I definitely agree with you that the wrong behaviors are being incentivized. So if an
Yes.
organization or a company wanted to up level or upskill or ensure the right people with the right behaviors are transitioning up into those roles, what recommendations or thoughts or suggestions would you have for somebody to utilize?
Yeah. So I think it's so much easier than we think, right? We're like, oh, competency models or whatever it is. It's so complicated. It's so heavy. And it's like, no, no, no. All we're doing is measuring things we can see. We're making it complicated. I want to be able to see how you communicate. I want to see how you're following up. I want to know if you've made all those sales that you said you're going to do. These measurable things. Are you coaching your team members? Are you providing feedback in a timely way, right? Like you can measure that stuff, but we don't focus on those things. We measure all of the wrong things like attendance and tenure
Hmm.
and like that's not what's
Yeah.
moving the needle by any means whatsoever. And so, like, I just don't think we're looking at the right stuff. I don't think that we are prioritizing the right things. And so, if leadership's not prioritizing the right things, so they're not being held accountable to the right things, we're not going to focus on the right things. So, for me, behaviors are a really, really easy place to start because there's only so many behaviors you can observe, first of
Yeah.
all, right? Like
Yeah.
there's only a small pot of what you can start in. And if you start there, it'll just kind of whittle itself down a little bit. So my
Yeah.
first thing is set clear expectations through measurable behaviors, period.
Gotcha. And so, what if, and just throwing out a hypothetical, I'm sure we've both run into this in the past. You run into that hiring manager or that executive who says, I know leadership through my gut. I can tell right off the bat, as soon as this person walks in the door, I know they're a strong leader. How would you
Mhm.
counter or push back on somebody who says that?
I think right now we're seeing a big
A little
rise
bit.
in like
Yeah.
vibes-based things.
Hmm.
It's I hate it. It's the bane of my existence. But like vibes-based hiring is a thing right now. And it's like, oh, I could tell that,
Yeah.
we really vibed, we really have like the same attitude. It's like, okay, so you're hiring people that look like you. You're hiring people that think like you. That's not diversity. That's not going to push the needle. That's not going to get your organization to the next level. And so there has to be some intention in pulling diversity and pulling different perspectives and stuff like that in. And so if someone were to tell me, yeah, I just got a good gut
Yeah.
gut
Yeah.
feeling that they could do this, I'd say, okay, what did you like? Why? What is the
Yeah.
gut telling you? Like, let's
Hmm.
actually deduce what your gut is telling you. And if it gets nowhere but vibes, my answer is, okay, so that's really biased and very discriminating.
Hmm.
Right. And so, like, sometimes we just have to call those things out. And I think, especially at more senior levels, they're moving really quickly. They're very detached from reality in a lot of ways. Right. And so we have to bring them back down and just be like, hey, what does vibes mean to you? Is vibes because, like, you guys went to the same college?
Yeah.
Or is
Yeah.
vibes, oh, you know that they had a huge revenue target and they were able to meet it and you feel like they'd fit the vibe of this role too? Because those are
Yeah.
very, very different things.
Yeah, and interesting. So building off of that, I definitely agree. Vibes may potentially be another word for bias. Maybe
Mhm.
maybe some kind of prejudgment that's happening of an individual. But another thing that most hiring managers or people in HR don't take into consideration is, are they hungry? Are they sleepy? Did they get in an argument just before the interview? And so all of those other factors can be influencing how somebody's interpreting during an interview. And
Yeah.
so by not having those explicit behaviors, we're not really sure if we're on target in terms of hiring the right person. So I agree
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, living with a disability, you will notice during this entire call, I have already been fidgeting a lot. I can't sit still. I have arthritis in my entire body. And
Oof.
so for me, like, I'm moving. I am not stationary. And some people might think it's distracting, it's unprofessional, which, by the way, unprofessional needs to be just
Yeah, what does that
struck
mean?
from our
Yeah,
that is a whole nother podcast episode. But we have to recognize that, like, just because I can't sit still for a full hour doesn't mean I can't fulfill the job title
yeah,
completely. And so, like, it's our biases that are coming out and that are making it so that we are thinking, oh, she's moving, that's going to be really bad for our clients, or that's going to be really bad for whatever. And it's like, well, no, it doesn't impact
yeah,
my ability to do the job description.
yeah,
And so we have to be conscious of that. It's the meeting people where they're at, and we do a really bad job of that
yeah.
in so many ways.
100%. 100%. And I'm going to layer in kind of another layer of complexity. So I
Yeah.
think cultural background also plays a big role. And I'm going to share a little bit more in terms of my experience. So I am someone
Mhm.
of Mexican American descent. And for us, our culture is very deferential to authority, which means we respect authority. We adhere to it. We tend not to question it. And as a
Mhm.
result, individuals, when there's that power differential, supervisor talking to employee, or in this case, interviewer talking to interviewee, we struggle with making direct eye contact because it's viewed as
Mm,
disrespectful, and
okay.
so,
Yeah.
we tend to be very deferential. During an interview, that can be interpreted as they're not taking us seriously, they're not interested, they're not engaged, when it's like,
Mm.
well, I'm trying to
Yeah.
show you respect, and I do it kind
Yeah.
of unintentionally. That's just the way I was raised. We're very respectful for individuals in authority, to our elders. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, that I don't want to complicate things too much, but that's another layer we have to take into consideration.
So yes, so leaders need to be conscious of their level of competence. Um, they also need to be conscious of their biases.
Hmm.
And I think that one of the biggest biases that we have is like, oh, this person has potential.
Mm,
What does that mean? That
yeah.
doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything. You can't measure a behavior of potential,
Yeah.
right? And we're learning. We've
Yeah.
done this whole like past performance is the best indicator of future performance. We know that's not the case anymore, you know? So it's like hiring is getting turned on its head right now
Hmm.
in terms of what's real, what's right, what's fair, what's equitable. And, I think to your point earlier, you were talking about the cultural competence differences and all of those things. It's like, well, yeah, and then there's neurodivergent people who also don't make eye contact sometimes.
Yeah.
Does that mean they can't do their job? No. I mean, when I'm thinking, if I'm deep in thought and you and I are talking, I will sit back, I will spin in my chair, I
Yeah.
will look around because that's how I process information. It's not better or worse than how anyone else does. It might just be a little bit different. But people in power are scared of
Hmm.
different. And
Yeah.
so that's the biggest, I think, problem is this power dynamic that exists in organizations. And once the majority gets into place and then you're part of the out group, like you're screwed.
Yeah.
You can't even bounce
100%.
back. And
Yeah.
so it's leadership's job. It's
Yeah.
leadership's job to make a psychologically safe environment. And if it's not psychologically safe, it is leadership's fault, in my opinion.
Gotcha. And so 2 points I wanted to expand upon. So
Yeah.
potential, I definitely agree 10,000%. And the question that I often follow up with leaders is potential for what?
Yeah.
And that's where they're like, that's actually a really good question. What are
Yeah.
we showing potential for? And that
Yeah.
could be a million different things.
And we see it like in this 9 box
Yeah.
rating all the
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
it's just like,
What are your thoughts
what
on
are
that?
you actually doing? What
Yeah.
are we
Yeah. Yeah.
actually rating and what are we actually saying?
Yeah.
Like, potential is just this nebulous excuse, in my
Yeah.
opinion, to be able to make biased decisions. It's a way to be like, yeah, well, that guy went to this school or graduated with this MBA or they came from Amazon, so they're going to be great.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that doesn't necessarily ring true in all situations. And so that's again, I think where it gets down to like identifying behaviors, being really, really, conscious of
Hmm.
what you're rewarding and how you talk and the words that you use and all of that kind of stuff. But I think also part of it is like when you're wrong and you get it wrong, you got to say you got it wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And the second point that I wanted to kind of highlight that I agree also is that past behavior doesn't necessarily predict future
Mm-mm,
behavior. And I
mm-mm.
think, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, but I think a primary driver or reason behind that is work is changing at a rate that it never has in the past. So in the past, that may have been true, that what you did in the past actually translate to today and potentially in the
Yeah,
future.
yeah,
But work is changing at such a rapid rate where it's like what you did yesterday, you're not going to be doing that today. And
yeah.
so should we be using that to determine who we should hire today? It's like I don't know the
I
answer
don't
to
think
that.
so. And I
Yeah.
don't think so because I think like it also everything is nuanced and there's context and there are situational things
Hmm.
that you have to think about. So like I might not have a really great example for a behaviorally based rating question that you ask me because I just came from a really toxic work environment where
Hmm.
I had no power or, it was held against me if I wanted to do the right things. And so now I don't have an example because it wasn't the reality of the world that I was living in. And so I think that we have to be inclusive and we have to think about how would you approach this? What would you do? What are the questions you ask? So like instead of saying, how did you do this in the past? I could make up a story.
Yeah.
Like we can all make
Yeah.
up a
Yeah.
story. And so what you want to understand is how they think about things. How do they approach problems? How do they gather resources? How do they establish buy-in? Those
Hmm.
are the things to ask about, not well, tell me about a time
Yeah.
where you put in a program and it was successful. What? What does that
Yeah.
even, that doesn't mean, that could be anything. I could talk
Yeah.
about anything to you. And so like we need to be better as interviewers of actually asking the questions that matter and actually asking like here's what we're going to be promoting you on, so here's what we're
Hmm.
going to be hiring you on, right? Like that I think is the biggest disconnect that we
Yeah.
see in
Yeah.
performance management is like, okay, we hired you and this is what your job description, but your performance rating is actually based on this stuff, and it's like,
Yeah. Two different things.
how
Yeah.
did I get there? This isn't realistic
Yeah.
job setting expectations. Like it's just setting people up to fail because we don't prioritize the people experience because we say it's not ROI generating, it's all of those things
Gotcha.
when we know that it is. We do know that if you're individualized and you provide consistent feedback that's constructive and then opportunities for growth along with resources and support from your manager, that's a
Yeah.
winning combination. But we then give feedback and it's like, well, you did a bad job at this. And it's like, so figure out how to get there yourself.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm doing a
Yeah.
bad job at this because I've never done it before. How can you expect me to know something I don't know? How can you expect me to play a clarinet if if I don't
Yeah.
even know what the shape of the clarinet looks like, kind of thing.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so you're leading us into the next topic area was performance management. But before we get into there, I had one last question on
Yeah.
leadership.
Yeah.
So this is the million, if not billion-dollar question. And I'm
Uh-oh.
curious to get your thoughts on this. So leaders, are they born or
No,
are they made?
they are
Okay.
made. They are
Tell me
made.
more.
No, we are emotional beings and emotions are plastic. They are malleable. They
Yeah.
can change over time. So, like emotional intelligence, for example, is very plastic. Unlike your IQ, which is your intelligence, your EQ, which is your emotional, is malleable. It's plastic. You can work on it if you want.
Hmm.
And we know that EQ is the highest indicator of a good leader. So, no, no, you're not born that way. You're making a choice to not be that way, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
I agree 100%. And the reason I say that, kind of expanding on what you shared, leadership can take various different forms. Just look at some of the titans of business that exist today. We have kind of the brash, the kind of very, I don't want to say rude, but aggressive kind of
Hmm.
Elon Musk on one side. Then we have the very reserved, very soft-spoken, very calculated Warren Buffett. Those are two completely different types of leadership styles, leadership approaches to leadership, but they're both successful in their own domains. Neither is
Hmm.
right or wrong. They're
Hmm.
both successful. So to your point, I agree. Leaders can be made and they can look different once individuals ascend to those levels.
And I think it's also important to note like how they're leading their teams, right? Like
Gotcha.
Elon is leading through fear. And people are following along because they're scared, because he's creating a scarcity mindset. He's creating all of these like he's putting people in weird positions and people are sticking around because they're scared of what else could happen. And so like this fear-based workplace, I think, is something that's becoming a lot more prevalent. And I think it's going to bite these companies in the ass, especially once Gen Z is starting to take over the workplace because they're going to be like, fuck this, bye. No, I'm not
Yeah.
doing this.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what needs to happen. This is what's gotten these people promoted and gotten these people to these levels. Then when you see that, then those are the behaviors that are rewarded. So
Hmm.
then that's what the other leadership team does. And so it's just like this trickle down effect of bullshit. And we just have to hold the top person accountable to the culture that we want. I will say, if that is the culture that Tesla wants to have, fine.
Yeah.
But don't come at me with like core values of like
Yeah.
empathy and like support and community.
Yeah.
No, just like be honest about it then. Just be like, no, we are results driven. We value long hours. Like if that's your company, just own it. But
Hmm.
don't try and like give me all the bullshit that is obviously just fluff because you feel like you have to say this stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Perfect. So I think this is a great place to transition now to performance management and potentially evaluating the effectiveness of leaders.
Yeah.
So do you have any thoughts, any recommendations, any approaches on what would potentially be the best way to evaluate if a leader is successful in their role?
Yeah, I think like I personally, so I'm going to approach this from a leader who has direct reports. I think that's a good context here. And so I think for them, success, how do we manage those people? How successful are their team members, right? And it's like if they're managing people out consistently or they're having a lot of turnover or like people aren't being upskilled, that's a leader problem. That's not a team member problem. And so we have to be realistic about the role that a manager plays. I think right now we're also seeing a lot of managers who are also doing IC work, so individual
Hmm.
contributor work. So not only are they managing people, but they're actually executing as well. And so they only have so much time, so much energy, so much focus. So like this is where biases come in, right? Is biases exist because we had to make snap decisions in the past to keep ourselves alive. It's kind of like that in the workplace right now. Like,
Yeah.
unfortunately, you kind of have to keep yourself alive right now. And so I think with leaders, we have to measure what matters. If it's the execution of their IC work, that's what they should be measured on. If it's their leadership, that's what they should be measured on. But I don't think it's clear. I don't think it's clear how we are saying what success looks like for these leaders right now. It's the same thing as anything else. Like if you tell me my job description is this and then I come in and I do this, there's a huge disconnect and I'm not going to be successful. And I think that's what's happening with leadership right now too.
So with that, in evaluating leaders, there's an idea I've been rolling around in my head, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. So there's two ideas I have, but they're intertwined. We'll talk about the first one first. So traditional performance evaluation was top down or supervisor to employee. What are your thoughts if we flip that on its head, where instead of the leader evaluating the employees, it's the employees evaluating the leader, and that level is where most of the decision whether someone should remain employed or not takes place, rather than the level lower. So I'll pause there to get your thoughts.
I have a lot of thoughts on this.
Yeah.
So like me, Greer, I am never, ever, I don't care if it's my boss, I don't care if it's a peer, I don't care who it is. I'm never going to write something down attached to my name that could possibly get somebody fired or in trouble. I'm just not going to do it. I am not going to do it. I'm definitely not going to do it with my peers because I don't know what success looks like for them. I don't know what conversations with their manager look like. I don't know what's happening behind closed doors. That's for them to do. I should never be evaluating my peers' performance. I could tell you whether or not I want to work on another project with them,
Gotcha.
but it's not for me to tell you how they performed. That's not a position that an IC should be in. In terms of ICs providing ratings for their managers, that's also very unsafe for people to do, right? So like again, if I am having an issue with my manager and I go and I write in a review, they're bad at communicating, they're bad at setting expectations, and I feel like it's, setting me up for failure. Retaliation right around the corner. Like, let's watch it happen. I've been in HR long enough to like know that that's how it goes. And so you get that feedback, but the feedback then is like, oh, well, the manager shouldn't have to manage this person that closely. They're taking this manager's time up. It was a mishire, right? So there's all these excuses as to why to keep the manager, but to let go of the individual contributor. And so the system's broken. I think the system is just broken. I think the way that we're thinking about performance management right now needs a complete overhaul. I don't think it's incentivizing or rewarding people for the right things. It's not timely. And we know that's like the number one thing. We know that like we're getting more and more remote and things need to be automated more, but performance management isn't keeping up with that. And so like when I say we have all these best practices and these antiquated systems, this is what I'm talking about. Like, are you ever gonna give your manager a 1 out of 5 and have your name next to it? No,
and then show up to work
it's a
the next
target
day.
on my back this big. No,
Yeah.
come on. So like, what are we actually doing? And then at the end of the day, we're spending so much time doing all this shit and there's no yield from it. There's no positive outcome. And it's like the amount of money we're spending for people to do these performance management process is astronomical, and we're not really getting a return on it at the end of the day. So it's just like we're going through the motions because compliance. That's
Gotcha.
performance management in my mind right now. Performance management is compliance.
Gotta
It's to
check
say,
the box.
oh hey, oh hey, investors, look, no, we did it. We did the annual
Yeah.
cycle exactly like it said in order for you to fund us for the next year.
Okay,
That's all it
gotcha.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's definitely an interesting take. And so I'm really curious to hear your take on this next idea that's been rolling around in my mind.
Okay.
So for me, and feel free to, if you want to jump in at any time, but I think a leader, traditionally, what their role has been is to be the kind of conduit between the executive team or the CEO themselves, their message translated down to employees. So they kind of sift through all the noise to really distill it down so that employees know, okay, this is what I need to do to help realize that vision. The opposite is also true, where employees, they're, having this idea or this issue is bubbling up. They bring it up to their manager, their leader, and then they bubble that up further up the chain. So it's leaders traditionally have been that conduit. So that way communication can go between the highest level to the lowest level. I think technology is going to replace that role. I think
Yes.
now,
Yeah.
okay, so then here's my next idea or the thought that's been rolling around in my head. If that is the case, and executives have an opportunity to clarify their message at scale to all their employees, do we even need leaders anymore? And I,
Yeah, that's a good question. That's an interesting way to think of that.
yeah.
I
And
think,
so this was my thought process on what would change or what role can change or take the place. So
yeah.
instead of a leader, I was going to have someone come down and be a project manager. So they're on the same level to make sure the rest of the team is on target, but they're
Hmm.
not above. They're kind of an additional team member. And then I
Hmm.
started taking that one step further. If leaders, I don't want to say are downgraded, but they're viewed at the same level as the rest of employees, individuals still aspire to be leaders because you know what I mean? The prestige isn't there, the pay isn't
Hmm.
there. So it's
Yeah,
like, then what's the point?
yeah, yeah.
So,
I mean, I think from my perspective, there are two jobs of a leader. It is to get somebody access to resources and to remove barriers so that they can be
gotcha.
successful. That is it. That's it. And so I think in a way, that HR needs to be fixed is we've got to separate the processes out, right? So like you have to separate out performance from my mind is going blank. I need to separate out like what my day-to-day job is and then my performance, right? And so there's a really interesting organization that I worked with this just amazing head of people. Her name's Alexandra Ehrman. And she essentially said, all right, our HR team is going to be responsible for your growth and development, and your manager is going to make sure that you have what you need to be successful. They're going to give you inputs on what you're doing, but HR is going to drive your development to ensure that you have a partner that is there for development.
Gotcha.
And so, like, but
Hmm.
that's not that hard to do. Like,
Yeah.
what a concept to be able to do that. And so I think that management is important. People need leaders. I always say people need autonomy, but they need autonomy within guardrails. Tell me what
Hmm.
my boundaries are, and then I want to operate how I need to be successful within those boundaries. And so we just have to be intentional about who is doing what, right? Because like if you're going to come to me as my HR person and write me up and put me on a PIP, I'm not going to feel safe doing a developmental plan with you.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think we just have to be realistic about like emotions driving people, who is responsible for what and what's the perception, because perception is reality. And
Hmm.
if I perceive that you're going to use this against me, I'm not going to feel safe. So for me, I think leaders are important for setting expectations, holding people accountable, and getting them access to those resources. But I think the role of a manager is very, very much changing. Very, very much. And I do like your idea of a project manager,
Yeah.
right? Because that's the person who should be gathering feedback about the
Hmm.
performance that somebody did on a team. And so, that's how we even change that stuff. It's not like 1 to 5, how did this person do on this project? No, you could just ask them, would you want to work on another project with this person? That's going to get you way more information than a 3,
Gotcha.
you
Yeah.
know?
No.
So it's like we just have to be a little bit more creative about how we're thinking about and what is the information that we actually want, especially because we know people don't know how to use rating scales and they're always going to skew positively. Let's do
Gotcha.
something different.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're right. And it's interpretations of behavior, although best practice would stipulate that we outline behaviorally
Hmm.
anchored rating scales, what they should look like. It's hard for individuals to interpret it all the exact same way. So I
Hmm.
like your point in terms of trying to have someone observe a behavior. They look introspectively and say, would I feel comfortable working with this person again? Because
Yep.
I think that is the closest to being as true to a scale or to a score or to a representation rather than me trying to observe someone else.
Yeah. And I can't rate what you're doing. Again, I can
Correct.
rate how
Yeah,
I feel about
I like
something, or
that.
I can give you information about how I experienced
Hmm.
something. But again, I don't know how somebody else performed because I truly don't know what was expected of them. I know maybe they're like the communications person. What does that really mean in their day to day, inside and outside of this project that I'm working with them on? So it's just things aren't set up well right now and they're breaking internally. And I think a lot of people are feeling that. And so the change needs to we gotta be more individualized. Everybody, you and I are never going to come into the same role at the
Yeah.
same place, right? And that's where like accessibility and accommodations come into play is like I need different things to be successful than you do. I need a little bit more flexibility in my time. I need things presented visually to me, and I love a deadline. And those are my three things that drive me. You might not resonate with a single one of those. And frankly, that's fine, but that's the manager's job to understand and then to motivate their team member based on what gets them.
I like that. And this is a perfect segue into our next topic, individuals with disability or who experience disabilities and accessibility concerns.
Yeah.
So tell me more in terms of, do you believe individuals who have or who experience disabilities and have accessibility issues, are they viewed differently in the workplace?
So, as a disabled person who, let's be realistic, you look at me and you don't think I'm disabled. So that's a big problem on its own. That's our third podcast episode, my
There
friend, that
you
we'll
go.
talk.
We got a
Um,
couple, yeah, in the
yeah, right.
chamber. Yeah.
But I think, yes, there's a stigma. It's totally a stigma. It's they're not as capable, they can't show up, they're not dependable, they're not reliable, you know, maybe they can't think as straight or as quickly or whatever. It's like, no, 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 no. We all have something. Everybody has something, and everybody wants to be treated like an individual. Like, nobody wants to show up on day one and have the exact same experience as everybody else. I want to meet with my manager. I want to talk to my team members. I want to know what success for that team looks like and start to integrate into that culture. I don't want to sit in this big room and have people talk at me for 9 hours because that's how they decided it was the easiest way to do stuff. And so I think we've got to really, really think about what are we changing? And for disabled people, for accessibility issues, it's so much easier to get somebody what they need if you just ask them. And if you like, for me, I need to travel the day before I get in somewhere. That's not going to stop me from doing my job,
Yeah.
right? And so I need a standing desk. That does that mean I can't do my job as well as somebody who could sit 9 hours a day? No. So we just have such a stigma of disability in the workplace. And I think it has to change because disabled people, my friend, we are
Yeah.
creative, we are intelligent, we are flexible, we are agile. We come up with solutions that other people would never come up with because they would never have to think about doing that. We create things with accessibility in mind. So, like, I'm thinking about other things that other people might need when I'm creating programming because I need special things when I'm creating programming. So, like, we have a different perspective. We have a different lived experience that we can bring. And I think it's powerful. I think people are missing out if
Yeah.
they don't bring disabled people onto their teams.
I agree. And going back to earlier in our conversation, where past behavior doesn't necessarily predict current or future behavior, I think individuals, so I'm not saying this is definitively the case,
Yeah.
but there has been instances where individuals viewed somebody's disability as a potential barrier to successfully. And going back to, well, that doesn't matter. Can they
Mhm.
do it today? And I think also work is changing so fast with technology being able to supplement or support a variety of different individuals. I think we can tap into this potentially untapped pool of huge, diverse, thoughtful, creative, engaging, energetic
Yeah,
pool of candidates. Yeah,
you can have a disability and you can have a PhD too.
yeah, yeah.
Like it doesn't stop you. It's not this person is not like I am a disabled person. I have a disability every single day, every moment of my life. I can show up and I can kick some ass when you set me up to succeed.
Yeah, I agree. And so for me, this leads me to, we talked about past behavior, not predicting future behavior. I'm even wondering if we should be looking at behaviors at all. So let me share where I'm
Yeah,
coming.
yeah,
And so this might be a little bit of a controversial take, and I'm curious to get your thoughts.
yeah.
That I can see where I'm gonna go with it. Let's see if it goes off the rails or not.
Got it.
So for me, when it comes down to someone's role or someone's job, we've really been focused in on tasks and behaviors. For
Mhm.
me, I think both of those are going to go away because work is changing so fast. I think
Mhm.
ultimately it's going to come down to outcomes. Regardless
Yes.
of what you're doing or how you're doing it or even who's doing it, can you
Hmm.
produce outcomes? And I
Hmm.
think that may eventually be, I don't know how it's going to be, but that is how performance will be evaluated. I haven't ironed out what that's going to look like yet. That's kind of
tech it started to go that way,
okay.
and they call it impact.
There you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whatever that means, however
Yeah.
you're going to measure that, sure. Yeah, impact is subjective, but okay, yeah. I think we complicate it too much. I really think we complicate it too much. Like bars exist because managers don't know how to manage and they don't know how to give
Hmm.
feedback and because we want to avoid discrimination lawsuits mostly, so that we're saying, no, 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 we rated everybody on the same things.
Hmm.
Everybody was rated on the same things. So that's a big part of what drives but the anchored rating scales and that stuff is compliance, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Performance management is compliance in a lot of ways. And I think until we change our mindset around that, it's still going to be compliance. It's still going to
Hmm.
be these behaviors, all of those things that you just talked about.
Yeah,
But no, I think impact, outcomes, output, whatever, I
yeah,
think that it is going that way. I think it's going to be a really bumpy ride to
yeah,
get there, if
yeah,
I'm being
yeah.
really honest with you. Um, and I think it's not going to be applied effectively across everybody for a long time because outcomes, again, are
Hmm.
subjective.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we've got to find a middle ground. Maybe it doesn't have to be just behaviors or just output or whatever it is, but it's a
Hmm.
mix of both where you can understand. Because I think what performance management should do is it should tell the story. It shouldn't say this is where you're at right now today. It should tell you how you got here. What did you do to get you here? And how did you participate? Because nobody's ever going to be 100% all the time, and we can't expect anybody to be 100% all of the time. People are going to dip. People are going to have things that
Yeah,
life is lifing in
yeah.
2025. My God, it is just coming at us left and right. And so we have to build in flexibility there as well. And so if you're thinking about that, it really is about impact. It's like,
Hmm.
give me the day it's due. And as long as I get it to you, that's that guardrails with autonomy thing I'm talking about. Is like, I
Gotcha.
don't care how you got there. What I think it is people are misbehaving, people are cutting corners to get there, whatever it looks like. That's where this like consistent management has to come in because you got to wrangle the cats.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes to me, I agree 100%, and that definitely resonates with me.
Mhm.
And so coming back with to individuals with disabilities, there is, or I'm curious to get your thoughts. Has it been difficult, or can it be difficult for individuals who have disabilities to ascend up into leadership roles?
Yeah.
And do you have recommendations on what organizations, companies can do better to kind of include or be more inclusive?
Put disabled people in
That's a
leadership
good point.
positions.
Yeah. Now that you bring it up, oh, this might not be good. I'm trying to remember if I can't remember if I've never had
So
like a
it's
leadership team or
exactly. So like
yeah.
I don't know if you've seen like the videos of the little girl who go to Target and they see a disabled person in the marketing up there
Yeah.
and they're like that's me. I've never seen that. It's the same in
Yeah.
workplaces.
Yeah.
It's the same with women in workplaces. It's the same with Black women in workplaces. It's the same with any minority, any sort of out group, right? That is going to be in this position. And until that leadership level changes, nothing's going to change. Until they stop putting their friends next to them and not holding them to the same standards that they're holding everybody else in the company to, no disabled people are going to get into leadership positions and nothing's going to change. They're going to create an ERG for disabled
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And then they're going to put a disabled person in charge of that ERG who they're not
Yeah.
going to compensate for that at all. They're
Hmm.
going to use it externally as a marketing thing. And then you're going to get internal as an employee who's disabled and you're going to be like, none of this is what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
None of it. So I think there's no visibility.
Yeah.
There's no visibility. And then when you have a pretty homogenous group at the
Hmm.
top, they're all making decisions with their own interests in mind because
Yeah.
they don't have the viewpoint. They don't have that diverse set of eyes that's like, well, hold on, did we consider this?
Yeah. And I think that's fair. And I definitely can resonate with if I can see myself in someone I'm aspiring to be or something I want to purchase, or if I can see myself or someone like me is reaching for that, I'm more inclined to believe I can too. So I
Yeah.
agree 10,000%.
Well, and like too, I think it's crazy to think that even if we do something that helps a disabled person be more successful, we're crazy to think that other people aren't getting benefits from that too.
Yeah.
right? Like think of when you go on a sidewalk and you have the dip with the little bumps, wheelchair users, low
Hmm.
vision, right? Like it's for a lot of different use cases. It was put there, the little bumps are there for people with low vision so that they can feel it with their canes and they don't cross the street right away. There's lots of other benefits to these dipped kinds of ramps. So like there are so many studies out there about making your website accessible and how that increases sales all the way around because more people can access it, even if it's not just that individual group that they created it for. So everybody benefits from accessibility. Everybody.
Yeah, 100%. And so I'm going to shift gears now a little bit. We're going to talk about kind of the IO field a
Yeah.
little bit larger. And so as an IO working with non-IOs, one of the pieces of feedback I've gotten pretty consistently is I'm too theoretical. I'm
Mm,
too,
hmm
research based. This doesn't
hmm
actually apply into the real world. I'm
hmm
curious to hear, have you gotten similar experiences, similar
Oh yeah.
feedback?
Oh yeah. Especially when I was in school,
Okay.
I was just getting like, this isn't a paper. I'm
Yeah,
writing a
exactly.
school
Yeah,
paper.
yeah,
You
yeah.
don't need, like, it's ingrained in us to cite our sources,
Hmm.
to have data points, to do all that. They don't give a shit about
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so I think there's a huge disconnect. We're taught to be, as IOs, very academic. We're taught to be, um, you know, objective from a data perspective.
Hmm.
And that doesn't take into account a lot of times the nuances of a culture or a person or a team. And even though we learn about all of those things and we get all of that information when we are getting our degree, but we're applying it in a very like mathematical, very like there's not a lot of nuance to it. There's not a lot of wiggle room to it. And so I think not only that, but we don't really sell ourselves as
Hmm.
IO either. Like, I can't tell you how many times people have been like, "Oh, so
Yeah.
are you like analyzing me?" And
Yeah,
it's like, yeah,
yeah,
tell me about your relationship with your dad. Like,
yeah, yeah,
no, that's
yeah,
not what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure out how you're motivated and how you want to communicate at work. Like,
yeah,
that is what I want to understand. And so we don't do a good job of selling ourselves. We don't do a good job of setting ourselves up as partners a lot of times because we are, focusing on the wrong things in a lot
yeah,
of ways. It's our job to advocate for ourselves internally so that we also get the resources and the support and the buy-in that we need to be able to do the work. So, like, just because you're a PhD doesn't mean you're going to go into an organization and they're going to be like, okay, we're going to listen to everything you say. They're going to be like, oh, you're a PhD. Why are
yeah,
you
yeah,
here? Why
yeah,
aren't you teaching a college course? And it's like, well, hold on, no. No, no, no. We have to talk about this. This is applicable in this way. And I'll send you an article and here's some research. And they're like, I don't want any of that.
yeah, yeah,
Just fix my team. And
yeah,
so we aren't doing ourselves any kind of help when we're in internal organizations. We are acting like academics in an organization and it's not
yeah.
meeting as much as we tell people that, as a manager, you get to meet your team member where they are. We're not meeting our teams where they are as IOs in a lot of ways.
Yeah, 100%. And I think in addition to that, one of the drawbacks of being, well, potential drawbacks of being an IO is because we know we have that skill set or we bring that to the table, we tend to shoot arrows at individuals who try to stream away from kind of the
Mhm,
rigorous academic researcher trying to apply science. And we
mhm.
try to transition to more business oriented, more friendly oriented, more, team oriented, to your point. As we're trying to make that transition, other IOs kind of want to shoot us down. Have you experienced any of that at all?
Yeah, of course,
Yeah,
I absolutely have. A
yeah,
1000%, especially because a lot of the stuff that we do isn't overnight. I would say pretty much everything we do isn't overnight. Like we do culture.
yeah,
Culture takes the longest thing. It's the hardest thing to change in a business. It's harder than changing your image, your name. It's harder than changing your brand colors, your values. The internal culture that you have with your organization is difficult
yeah,
to get out once it's rooted in something. And so we got to be cognizant of that. We have to also be flexible. We have to also approach these conversations with questions and things like that because practice
yeah,
what you preach. It's what I hate about leadership. They're
yeah,
not they're
yeah,
not doing what they say they need to do. We as IOs aren't doing what we need to do to be successful.
Yeah, I agree. And for us, I think that is an opportunity for us to do better at what we're trying to do. So here's what I mean by that. Culture from kind of the non-IO person doesn't really know what that means, at least when it comes to the workplace. What does that mean? Is that definable? Do people research that? How do people research? Who has researched that? Most people don't know about this. And I think as IOs, we have an opportunity to translate or share based on all these. We don't have to get into this level of detail, but there is this science behind culture, how to change culture and how to identify it. Most organizations don't know, most leaders don't know, most managers don't know. And I think that's where we have an opportunity to make that translation, to be that in-between person between the science and the practicality, that we
Hmm.
can slot right in the middle to be the translator so it's effective going both ways.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good call out. And as you're talking about all of this, the thing that's coming top of mind to
Yeah,
me is engagement surveys.
there you go. Yeah,
So it's like we could really do engagement really, really
yeah,
well if we
yeah.
really, really tried. But all we're doing is just like sending out a 50 question survey and then expecting that to be the difference. Like, what
Yeah,
are, no,
yeah,
ask three questions and then focus on one of them. Like, that's what I always tell people. It's like, okay, your action plan has five things in it for the next quarter. You're going to fail.
yeah,
You're not going to get it. You're just not
yeah.
going to get there because you don't have the resources. Your team doesn't even know that this is something that they're going to work on. They need to be the main ones who are helping you get there. And so if you're trying to do this from the top down, they're not bought in. It's just another spin in your wheels of bullshit again. And so, yeah, I think we've got so many ways to gather data too at our fingertips, but we're
Hmm.
just using it wrong.
Yeah,
Like you can't change 17 things in 12 weeks. You can't change 17 things in a year. So
yeah,
like we just have to that's the part that with IOs that get me. It's just like, come on, we know
yeah.
this. We know that we're not going to get a behavior change in all of these different ways, especially if we're not having people get along with us. We're just telling them. Telling isn't teaching.
Hmm.
Telling's not teaching. And so until we get out of that, you can't tell someone to like come to work and be more engaged.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
It's like,
like,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
cool. Yeah,
yeah,
I'll show up
yeah,
and I'll be more engaged, but it's like
yeah.
we don't, what does engagement actually mean? How are they helping? How are we reporting on our progress even when it's bad?
Hmm.
Like there's no transparency around engagement, but it's one of
Gotcha.
our biggest indicators.
Yeah. Where I thought you were going with engagement is because it's kind of I don't want to say a hot topic, but it's a lot of organizations are utilizing employee engagement surveys that I'm seeing people from just random disciplines saying, "Oh, I can create a survey.
Hmm.
It's simple. It's
Oh
easy.
yeah.
You just
Oh yeah.
it's like random questions. It's double
It's no,
barreled.
I took a 16-week
Correct.
class to
Yeah,
take
yeah,
to write one question.
yeah.
Like no, it is, and it is. That's what it is. It's like there's a science to what we
Correct.
do.
Yes.
But as IOs, we're not
Yeah.
like, here, let me help you write these questions in a way where you're going to get the best results. We're like, let me give you the data on why this is the right way. And it's like, no, 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 I don't care on why. I just want the what. So
Hmm.
like we have to be able to we have to be better salespeople.
Yeah.
IO needs to be better salespeople. We need to be better at business development with our with our partner teams, period.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so to that, here's the $100 billion question. And there's not a right answer, there's not a wrong answer. I'm still looking for the
Yeah.
answers myself. How do we do that? As IOs, how do we get better at selling what we do, the skill set we bring, and the benefit or impact we can have?
Yeah, I think for me, so the way that I approach stuff is I'm an embedder. I get myself in, I work side by side. I am not the end all be all. I am the enabler, is how I view myself. So what I want to do is figure out as an IO, where are people's strengths? How can we put them in those places? How can we help upskill people who don't have those strengths? How can we bring people along with us as we're creating these programs, have them evaluate them for us? So, for example, I used to run a program called For the Field, by the Field. No one wants anything from HR. Nobody wants anything from
Yeah.
HR. So, what we would do is we would find a working group, we would empower them to come up with a plan, to pilot it, to give us feedback, iterate. And then when we launched it, it was launched to your peers from your peers, right? And so, like, as IOs, we put ourselves up here
Hmm.
and we're like, all right, I'm going to pull the strings to
Yeah.
watch you do this. When in reality, like, we have to be in there just as much as anybody else because we know about behavior change, because we know about language, because we know about motivation and all of these things. Like, it has to happen in real time. So again, this is, I think, what I mean by telling isn't teaching, is
Hmm.
like we can't tell somebody to be a better communicator. We have to teach them how to be a better communicator, and we have to let them practice. Like, adults don't learn the same way kids do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Adults, like, it's the tell, show, do, review that we have to focus on with adults. We got to tell them how to do it, physically show them. We have to let them get their hands on it,
Hmm.
wrestle with it, and then they need to get feedback immediately. So as IOs, why are we still putting programs in that aren't founded on that either? Like, we also are doing ourselves a big disservice by going into organizations and being like, okay, you want me to put together a 70-page PowerPoint deck?
Yeah.
I could do that. But
Yeah.
we know that that's not going to move the needle and that's not how people learn. So, like,
Yeah.
we're still not even advocating for ourselves, not advocating for our science, not advocating for
Hmm.
our expertise. We're just like, okay,
Yeah.
so, of course, we're not adding value in a lot of ways because a 70-page onboarding deck is never going to be a valuable thing that we do with our time. Now, what will be is like breaking that 70-page deck down into 10 different 7-page decks that
Hmm.
then focus explicitly at certain points in the employee journey on things that they need in that moment. So, like, behaviors make sense when you know what part of their job they need to have those behaviors for, and then how you can train them to get upskilled on those behaviors. That's where that stuff comes into play and it makes sense. It doesn't make sense from this theoretical high
Yeah.
level nothing perspective in the background.
Yeah. I agree that I think we can be most impactful when we get into the work, get our hands dirty, and we're
Mhm.
able to kind of move with the company, move with the employees, move with kind of working with them instead of
Yep.
strategizing in the background and then good luck.
And strategy is important. Strategy is important, but if you don't have the foundation and if you don't have the process in place to support that strategy,
Yeah.
don't do it. Just don't do it. Just don't waste
Yeah.
my time. I don't want to do it. Like, come on.
So an interesting piece of feedback I got is strategizing is great. It's the execution that
Mhm.
really is the differentiator. And I think
Mhm.
that's what you're touching upon is we
Exactly.
can have the greatest strategy, but we need to get down and dirty and actually execute on what we're
Yes.
doing.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's the like, as an IO, I can tell you what you need to do, but
Hmm.
if I don't teach you how to do it, I shouldn't bother telling you. Mhm.
Cool. So yeah, I think we've had a great conversation. Definitely appreciate your thoughts, your insights. If people wanted to connect with you or find out more about you, where would you recommend they go?
I have zero self-control when I have a notification on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So connect with me on LinkedIn. We also are hosting a free live remote summit. It's called Rethinkability for bringing disability and accessibility into the workplace in October. So if you go to rethink-ability.com, sign up for updates. We're looking for speakers. We want everyone to get involved. This is a community-driven effort. So please follow along with Rethinkability on LinkedIn. Get involved, message me. I'll meet with anybody. I'll say hey to anybody. So come to my inbox and let's meet and let's chat. Um, Community is all that's getting me through in 2025. And I think that we have to be here for each other. So I'm always here if anybody in the community, especially a disabled community member, needs someone to talk to.
Perfect. And so I'm going to hold you to, we have at least two more podcasts coming down the pipeline.
Two
At
more.
least. Yeah.
Two more. Yep, you got it.
Perfect. All right, great. Well, it was a pleasure.
Yeah,
And I'll catch you all in the next episode.
thank you.